I'm gonna do another Fabric Tip Friday. This is one of many that I keep doing on putting inspection rings and covers on. I know there's several ways to do it, but with AirTech, I'm gonna continue to cover this subject because I swear people are having issues, whether it be with an iron or not enough glue or whatever, that they can have troubles down the line. We use the plastic top that goes on our paint can, the Armor Lock, as the ring size. I've cut these out of just lightweight fabric, but these has been marked as far as, you know, where the inspection ring is going to go, and then I do my outer mark. That outer mark, if that's the same mark you're going to use to cut out your little dolly, keep in mind that your line is basically right where you're cutting your dolly and right where you're putting your glue. So it wouldn't hurt that the glue actually go out just outside the edge a little bit. When I get these marked, I first use our thin mix glue to put a coat down. This one's already had one down, and you can just barely see a difference in color. When it's going on raw fabric, I'll go over here where this tape's going to be. That first pass of glue, as far as going on, is basically taking glue down into the weave of the fabric. It's mostly thinner, but it's taking some glue down into the fabric. That's just kind of a primer, you know, getting glue around all the fibers of the fabric. All right, I'll come in next with another coat of the thin mix, 1 part glue, 3 parts reducer. Get a good brush that's got a good sharp edge. And what I like to do is carry that edge out just a little bit past it. I'm going to go about that much. I'm going to dip the bottom ½ inch in the glue again, and I'll do a little wipe out here first to get the big part on, because if you're on the curve of a wing and you start this, it could actually run off. But as you see, it looks like I'm laying this huge pile of glue on, but it's 3 parts reducer, 1 part glue. A lot of this is reducer. I take an edge all the way out to the edge, and it looks like I'm just flooding this. Well, we're actually putting down a tape, but then again, we're putting down an inspection ring that's in kind of a structural part, and I'm not actually going to go to the thick mix like you would be putting it on the hard surface. So there's my second coat of my glue for my ring. And you can see it's almost kind of puddled up around there. You know, you might just lay it around a little bit. All right, this one's dried now, and it's got 2 coats on it. Gonna come back with a third one, and it's just like putting your tapes on. Your third one is the one that, you know, you could put the dolly on or put the tape on in the third coat. But since we're putting an inspection ring, I like to do it just a little bit different. I want to note that I'm only mixing about 1 inch or so of glue at a time. Don't mix up something this full. Now you may mix up something a little taller and pour it over into another one and then keep it covered. But if you're in a warm area or whatever, you're constantly evaporating out the reducer, and your glue is slowly getting thicker. So I like to only do a small amount for that reason. And my brush is never going to get any deeper than, say, 1/2 to 1 inch. And that, you know, if you stuck your brush into something that deep, you just got a big mess dripping and everything. And as you go, if you can tell that your glue is getting a little thicker, just hit it with a little bit of reducer just to keep up on your mixture. What you'll notice is after you get a couple coats in, you're not soaking into the fabric anymore. It starts to flow a little further and go. Now you can go till you start to see coming out the back of the brush little lines. And that, you know, that means you've pretty well run out of glue. Like I said, I hit the inside again and take it to the outside. Anytime we're putting on tapes or whatever, you want a good flooded edge. You can sit here, when I tell you 2 to 3 coats, if you're one of these guys that wants to go and just get all the glue, you're not getting glue on anything. When we're talking about a layer of glue, we're talking about, you know, keeping your brush flooded and going along. Now you can do this little method and think that you're, you know, stretching out, and all you're doing is thinning glue out on the top, and you're not getting any out here to the edge. Now you can do that and make your glue go further. If you're a tightwad and you don't want to buy all the glue that you need, that's fine. you've spent all this money recovering your airplane. The first time a pressure washer hits the edge of that tape or this, it completely blows your tape off, and then you're calling me thinking there's something wrong with the system. If you want to be skimping on your product, then continue ahead. You're just not going to get the performance out of it. That third coat has went on. This one has got the third coat, and I was putting it pretty heavy. You'll see these little lines, and that's just where it was kind of piled up and the stuff evaporated out. When you put the doily over the top, that will all go in, blend in together. But what I like to do at this point, you can vertically see about where your inspection ring. I go ahead and just reactivate the center part here, about where that plastic ring is going to go. And you want to get enough down that there's not going to be an air void anywhere. You take your ring, and then you've trimmed the two factory edges off where they've injected and molded. You could leave that on there, but your fabric's going to go up over that little tip, and it's going to show. But vertically looking down, just line up to all your edges, lay it down, and you can see the little air in it. Mash it down, give it a little twist so it gets a good connection, and just bed it down into the glue. And it's kind of acting like when you put PVC pipe together. Normally you don't glue everything and just slip it together. You slip it together and do a little, 1/4 turn or something. You're kind of turning that just a little bit, and it's kind of automatically melting into that plastic, and that's just, getting you a good hold. You might hold it down just for a little bit. If that's not glued down good, it's not the end of the world, because you have fabric that's going to go here and up over the edge. But when you cut this out, you're going to have the original fabric, the ring, and the top fabric. And if they're not glued really good, you're going to have a little open area. Won't be the end of the world when you're putting the inspection plates on. Next thing you know, your little blade is going between a piece of fabric instead of around both of them. So you want to kind of, get that down. A lot of times when I'm cutting this out, I may see just a little void or something where it wasn't all the way down. It's not the end of the world, because you're glued down and you have a doily. I call them doilies. The ring around the top is glued down on that part too. All right, now we've laid the ring in and it's dried a little bit. I'm gonna come back. Now this is my fourth pass. Like I've always said, putting tapes on, you are gonna have about 5 passes total. The ring, putting these on is just a little bit different because we're putting that ring on. We may have an extra pass in here, but I'll go ahead and lay some glue. And I can tell by looking at this, it might be getting a little bit thick in my cup, but I'll manage it. I get a good coat of wet glue. While it's still wet, I'll hold this up and look at the top. Get it about centered. Just kind of lay it in at the center first. And like I've told them many a time, you could take that brush right now and you could just wet it all down and it would be fine. But because your fabric's going up and over this edge, you want to get this little void filled in. If you go ahead and start on the outside, you're going to pull it to a bridge, and you'll never get it to go back in if you get it stuck out here. You're pulling, as I'm going around here, I can see it pulling in. I did several videos on this, and I still have people have trouble with this, and when they're done, they're talking about all these white lines around their edge. Pull all your fabric in first to there, and I go to the top of it, get it kind of attached down. And before I push down out here and stick it, if you push it down out here and you got this little white bridge coming off, you come in later, you think, well, I'm gonna take the point of the iron, and you're just shrinking it even tighter. You're not gonna pull it. So you come around, if you can see that pulling, you can see that fabric coming in, but I haven't really attached it. It may have stuck a couple little places, but it's still wet. I pull that in all the way around, kind of work any wrinkle out, keep pulling it around, and I take my fingernail around the side of it, and I work that in to get it pulled in all the way. Now you've pulled all you're gonna need to. You can just lightly work down your edge. Now you may have a little tiny wrinkle show up or something. It'll usually work out. You can feel it with your finger as you work it around. All right, at this point, I don't let it dry anymore without coming back and wetting through, because if you sit and let it wait, anywhere that glue has touched the fabric, as I've told you before, it will seal up the weave, and then you can't get any soakage through. So Directly after you get all that done, you want to come around, go out past the pinked edges, all the way around the outside edge, and then work it in. And any tall glue at this point now is going to evaporate and could leave a line, so you want to just let your brush keep cleaning out and keep moving stuff around. Wouldn't hurt to make another round, kind of leveling out what you got. If you get a big pile of glue, like trying to start right there, you may go out and bring it back into the center and just kind of smear it around. Once it dries, it will lay out pretty good. At this point, it's probably fine, but I'll come back. This had 3. Put the ring on. We put another wet one down. That's 4. And we just put a wet, and that's 5. That's what your tapes will get. This tape will be fine as far as priming and not have any pinholes. But I usually, on the doilies, I may come back with one more really thin coat of glue and just lay around the edges to help lay stuff down. I don't understand how it always works out with these. You want to keep your fabric wrinkle free when you're cutting these out, but a lot of times you'll get this long line come up in them, and I don't know if it's to do with the way we're shrinking or whatever. Sometimes if it's a very sharp one, you can take the very tip of a hobby iron and just work out a little tiny wrinkle, but just the tip. I have people at this point, once it's dry and you got the last coat on, you want to take your iron, and if it's, I don't have one close here, you just want to go up on the edge, maybe 1/8 of an inch, and you're smearing out and attaching down, making sure there's no, because you'll feel of this and it'll be a rough edge. You're taking that iron and taking it out. I have people that want to take that iron and they're wanting to smooth out, and they're wanting to smooth out, and they're wanting to run around here. When they do that, that doily is going to come off, because you have laid the iron up here on light fabric. It is glued down. It's in the process of gluing. Usually I do that little iron and the tips out the next day. If you shrink that a 32nd of an inch, you have moved that fabric a 32nd of an inch, so you have basically sheared the glue, but then ironed the glue back down. Ironing glue down activated with heat is not as good as the wet embedded glue. It's going to stick, it's probably going to be fine, but that's where we see problems with doilies coming off, is most of the time they have put an iron somewhere up here when it's done. So if you have a little weird spot, if it's just a tiny one, just roll with it. I mean, the primer has a good build to it. This one's still wet. It's drying off now. I can see little spots. Sometimes it'll be a little clump of glue in there. But most of the time, unless it's just a little hard wrinkle, you can take the tip of that iron and just maybe finesse it a little bit, but never lay that iron up or go monkeying with all of this around the edge, or you'll have problems. So that's the way I do the doilies, and I just don't have trouble. 25 years ago, I had a Super Cub that I did what I was talking about. I glue them on there, and I just wet it through and did fine, and annualed the plane like a year later, and there was like 2 doilies. They hadn't been cut out, and they were just gone. Had a raw fabric. Paint, had a paint ring here, and it was just gone. Blew it off with a pressure washer. So that made me get to the point of making sure these are on good.